about it. It has, supposedly has lasted for over 1,000 years, and typically gathering a large number of tourists from across the country. I have not read anything about this year, but we are in a pandemic time. I don't know whether tourists are still coming from across the country.
One of the questions I have, which comes to mind having watched that story, is this is a tradition that's been handed down for centuries, and yet you have young people who are kind of caught up in, video games and high tech and all of that sort of thing. How do you keep this tradition going with the younger generation, do you think? Because obviously in that story they were talking about that's a concern.
Yes. China has developed very fast in the last 4 decades, and a lot of the cherished traditional values, traditional practices have been put into a strict test. So we have to see how things develop and how the families and the people who do the fishing and pass the tradition on to the young people. But I would say that they did try to do a good job in making it a tourist attraction. But I believe that this year that's probably not a good idea when the pandemic is still going on. Right? I thought they continue, to make it a tourist attraction, and I believe it can go on for another decade or 2 decades in the future.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the pandemic, with some of these cases spiking, whether or not that's going to have a hindrance effect on the tourists who come to watch this. I want to also ask you about, there's a signed memorandum of understanding between China and Papua New Guinea to build a fishery industrial park. This will take place as part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Can you talk to us about the importance of this agreement?
Yeah, absolutely. This project is a part of China's One Belt One Road initiative. As one of the missions of the initiative is green development, environmentally sound development. And I believe the project is for benefiting the 2 countries. But surprisingly, we have learned very little about the scope of the project, even though they're going to build a so-called comprehensive and multifunctional industrial park, but what it will involve is still not very clear to us. So it's hard to, understand the potential environmental, ecological impact. But I would say, overfishing is a legitimate concern, or geopolitical, concerns, a little bit, far-fetched. But I would say, it's of course, concern from the Australian side, but can be a, side-tracking.
And what about the overfishing issue? How does that get addressed, do you think?
Actually China, is paying greater attention to overfishing as a result of the conflict between China and Ecuador in June. China has, suspended the fishing in Southwest Atlantic and East Pacific as a response to the conflict, and also because of the reputation costs. It's huge. And I believe China must have done some kind of environmental evaluation with regard to this particular project, or if it has not yet, it should have been done, because that's part of the mission of the One Belt One Road initiative. You have to promote green development and environmentally sound development. Now the benefits, of course, for both countries, because China is the world's largest, fishing consumer. And, MPG, the country, especially that particular area, has a large number of, has a large number of people still in poverty. So it should benefit both countries.
Yeah, very interesting. Peter Lee joining